Hey there, my name is Carlos Belix, and today we are continuing to talk about low stats in D&D, so low attributes, and we are going to focus on the mental stats, so intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, and we are going to continue in studying our best friend for that, that is the Monster Manual, and we are focusing on the beasts that have low mental stats and how we can then relate our characters to some of the beasts and monsters in general that have low mental stats. Mental stats usually influence much more roleplay than physical stats when in almost any table that I've watched, played or DM'd with, because a lot of the stuff that come with the mental stats do not need rolling the dice to come up with something, because we are actually role-playing our characters, so we are giving the flavor that we want, so we try to incorporate intelligence, wisdom and charisma in how they will see, perceive and react to the world around them, much more than physical, than that we usually need to roll to actually be able to know if we can do that or not. What is good about mental stats is that we get some good examples of role players that can do that amazingly. For instance, if you watch Critical Role, you can see Grog. He has a very low intelligence, he has intelligence of 6, and Travis Willingham can roleplay that amazingly, and he even makes some stuff that are not good for the character itself, like some very dumb traits, but they give flavor and they are the most memorable moments. So this is what I am trying to focus, so how we can give much more flavor and how we can make stuff memorable. Also, Skellen has low wisdom and he is always making not dumb choices, but choices without some foreshadowing. Going stat by stat, or attribute by attribute, we are following the character sheet order, so starting with intelligence, we have crabs with intelligence of 1. So if we are going a little bit up there, we will have wolves, that they are more intelligent creatures with intelligence of 3. But then we get to much more human-like intelligence that we got with baboons. They have intelligence of 4, and apes with intelligence of 6. So Grog basically had the intelligence of an ape. And I guess with these guidelines you can relate. If we go up on the scale, then we start getting away from the beasts and getting to other creatures. Like Winterwolf has an intelligence of 7, or a Yeti have an intelligence of 8 or 9. So then you can start to see that animals, they have much lower values of intelligence, because when you start getting up, you start getting to think more logically, and although some animals have a little bit of logic on them, this logic is much more associated with wisdom and so instinct than really following a very well thought line of thought. Complementing on that, we go to the 3.5 guidelines for intelligence. With 1, you have animalistic behavior without capacity of reasoning or logical thoughts, and 2 or 3, the creature or the character will be barely able to speak, but having an intelligence with more than that doesn't mean that the creature will be able to speak. For instance, if you have a Find Steed or Find Familiar that will up the intelligence value for some creatures, like Find Steed will put it in 6, the creature won't be able to speak because it doesn't have the physical capacity to do so, although the reasoning they can understand. So that's why they can understand the language, although they cannot speak. And if you have intelligence of 6 or 7, like Grog, you will mostly mispronounce some words or misuse them, use them in the wrong place. So you have some guidelines in how you can fit your character with a low value of intelligence in that. And now we get to wisdom, and this one is tricky. I could not find any creature that has a wisdom value lower than 7. And 7 we have a Quipper, and we have a swarm of insects that they just react. And it's important to differentiate between intelligence and wisdom, and how precisely we will try to roleplay them separately. Because sometimes the character has a high wisdom and low intelligence, or a high intelligence and a low wisdom. It comes with no surprise that wisdom is the barebone of beasts and creatures in general, because differently than intelligence, that is logical reasoning, wisdom is more in foreshadowing and how you perceive the environment around you. So instincts will play a good part in wisdom. So you can have a low value of intelligence but a high value of wisdom, and then you will perceive better the world around you, and you will be able to try to predict certain options or paths that you can try and follow. So for instance, if you have a high value of intelligence but a low value of wisdom, then you will be able to think in the different paths that you can try to take, but because you are inconsequent, you will dismiss some of them because they are unimportant or unlikely to happen. And this is more what wisdom will come like. So a low value of wisdom is you will fail to perceive things around you, to try to foreshadow some consequences so you are inconsequential, or you even will dismiss them as they are not likely, they are impossible to happen, although you may have a reason to think in the possibilities that are there. So again, complementing of the rules or guidelines that they had in 3.5, one is someone that do not perceive the world around them. So basically, they cannot not even see or hear or even sense what is around them. And then you go to 6, 7, it will be that kind of character that cannot follow common sense. So they don't have the common sense or the common knowledge in how to interact with everything around them. And then if you go to not that extreme values like 8 or 9, it's the kind of a little bit of inconsequential that it doesn't think on a possible way to get to some place, but also that they can think about it, but they decide to disconsider it. So we get to the last one of the stats, and also the last one of mental stats, that is charisma. Charisma is the ability of a character or a creature to perceive themselves as a being. So to differentiate between them and the others around them. Charisma also is often used to interact with people outside of you and to influence how others will behave in something that you do or say. But getting more to the beasts part, then we will see that the lowest value of charisma is 1 for a swarm of insects, that they do not perceive themselves as a being, and they don't have that sense of being a being itself. Going a little bit up in the chain, we will see the rat that has a charisma of 4. So it doesn't tell you much of it, but then if you go a little bit up again, you get to cats, and they have a charisma of 7. And frankly, I would assume that they would have a better charisma because they are full of themselves. But this is how the game was designed. So they are aware of themselves and they know how to interact with others around them. And you have a tiger with 8, and then going up, you start getting out of the beasts and you get to a T-Rex. That it's a beast as well, but then you get orcs, hobgoblins with 9 and 10, and then you start getting a little bit off of the low stats. So I guess these were good examples that you can base yourself in how to interact with your low value of charisma. Again, complementing the idea of the low charisma with the guideline from 3.5, you see that charisma of 1 is the one that cannot perceive beings around them and such, and have a little bit of an autistic behavior, going up with 6 or 7, you are rude or you lack that common way of dealing with people without hurting or being mean with them. And if you go then a little bit more up again, then you see the ones that are just blatantly boring, and then they do not inspire others to go and try to help them. So now you have some benchmarks in how to compare your low stat with creatures, and also with some guidelines from previous editions of D&D. And I will focus a little bit of practical tips that you can try to implement for your character if you have low values of intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Because frankly, knowing that lizards and other reptiles have a charisma of 3 sometimes do not help that much in what you can do to try to figure how the other ones will perceive that. First of them, intelligence. They're normally associated with bookworms. So usually intelligence is the one that keeps reading and is very intellectual, and when you're trying to flavor that for a low value, try to mispronounce words or misuse them. You try to use perhaps difficult words in the wrong place. Also, do not try to think in very complex plans. You are much more blatant. Your character is much more blatant. This is very important for people that are very intelligent and are trying to roleplay low intelligence characters. Try to let that limelight to another character, because if you chose to have a character with a low value of intelligence, let another one get the spotlight and shine in this moment. You will probably be the one that will be hitting this stuff afterwards. So it's easy to try to roleplay intelligence in these ways. I guess these guidelines are already good for you to try to implement them. And frankly, if you need more guidelines to roleplay a low intelligence character, go watch Critical Role. Travis Willingham makes a damn fine job interpreting roleplaying with a character with low intelligence. And if you are not that fan of Critical Role, you can get some videos in YouTube with just some best moments or some particular places or situations where the low intelligence really got into the spotlight. And they're memorable. In the end, this is what we are trying to do with our low value. Put some color and put some memorable moments. Wisdom. The low value of wisdom is that kind of character that cannot perceive stuff around them, so they have their head in the clouds. They cannot really see some really clear stuff in the front of them. So someone is trying to cheat them or to lie to them, but they do not perceive that. They can be highly intelligent, but they do not perceive some stuff that someone is trying to trick them in situations that are not good for them. Also, another way of usually role-playing very high intelligence, low wisdom characters is the mad mage or the mad scientist, where they are really very smart, very intelligent, but they do not have the wisdom to have the common sense and common knowledge to not go to some places, not try to do some experiments, and do not play with some stuff that you cannot control. So for low wisdom, be silly, be inconsequential, let yourself be tricked, don't spot a blatant lie, and this kind of stuff. And you can see Scalen, he often does some silly and dumb stuff, and you can try to get away with that without really much consequences to your character. It's this kind of characters that do not have common sense of not trying something, or consider the consequences or the possible outcomes of what you are trying to do. This is something that you can put the light and the color for your low wisdom character. Charisma. So charisma is usually associated with personal beauty and physical beauty, but it doesn't need to be like that. You can have an ugly as hell character with high charisma and the epitome of beauty with a low charisma. Charisma is more how you can, as the skill says, persuade people and how you can influence the ones around you to try to get on your side. And also it's usually associated with leadership and inspiration, how you can get the best of the ones around you to get to your personal goals. Don't forget also that it's associated with performance. So a low value of charisma is someone that is or rude or shy, or they cannot speak in public, or they get really nervous and they start stumbling, or although they are intelligent, they cannot formulate a way to persuade people to get what they want. Role-playing a low charisma character, let the character not be in the limelight too much. This is not the thing that they are good at. They are not the face of the group. They have another character probably with a better value that should be the face of the group. Then each one can shine in their own spot and on time. So with a low value of charisma, try to be either rude or cannot formulate a phrase on when you are trying to persuade someone, or also you are not good with a lot of people around you. Try to think in this kind of stuff in order to try to get a good picture of your low charisma. Sometimes it's also how you cannot perceive the others around you as people or as different ones, so that you are not well aware of how people are different and how they have their unique sense of what makes themselves a being. This was a longer video than usual, and I hope that it could bring some tips and some ideas for you to try to shine and to color your low stat and your low attribute in your table, that perhaps you can create very memorable moments with that low value in any of your attributes. You all know how internet works, so like, share, subscribe, and recommend that to someone that you think that might like the video or that might benefit from it. And until next time, see ya!